Hello, good evening, Matilde. How are you? How's it going?
Hello. Good evening. Good.
Great. Let's start with the class, please. We have to continue working with the same logic that we know. All right, so we're going to start with the lessons that we have for today so that we can keep practicing other skills. I'm going to start with this one. Again, we are going to try to see at least two, lessons that Pearson is telling us that we have to cover. So we have to be sure that this is clear. So it is reflexive pronouns. Just by reading this, what comes to your mind, Matilde? What are reflexive pronouns?
Okay. Well, the possessive is mine and mine, yours, and reflexive is myself, yourself, himself, right?
That is correct. I think something happens. I don't know if you can check your microphone. It's different from yesterday. There's a noise, and your voice is just like very soft, and I cannot hear it very well. I can hear you, but there is a noise over there, and it's like as if you were very far.
Now it's better?
Yes, it's way better. Now I can clearly hear you. All right,
Okay.
so good. Thank you. So you were saying yes, yourself, myself, himself, that's reflexive pronouns. Good. What examples can you give me, or when do you use it? When do you use reflexive pronouns? And try to give me a couple of examples, please.
Okay. For example, my niece should be able to walk by herself in a couple of weeks. That's something
Good.
she would be able to do it alone with no one else's help.
Correct. That's one meaning, right? And it's correct. Here
Yeah.
we have at least four different meanings. Okay, we have four ways to use reflexive pronouns, and one of them, the last one, is the meaning of alone or without any help, right? Or
Mhm.
just alone. So good, that's one. What else?
Okay.
Try to give me one more, please, to see if we get another meaning for that.
Okay. Like she's not being herself. Like she's not. Yeah. She's
Correct?
not behaving in a normal way.
Correct. Good. That can be located in functions one or two because it's like not directly because it's not an action, it's a description, right? But it can get inside the idea of doing the action and receiving the action because it's describing something that is in this case herself, right? So is giving the description and is receiving the description in this case, right? Because it's not an action, it is a description. So good. Those are two. Now, again, we have four, but two of them are very similar. One is different, that is the one that you mentioned at first, right? Alone, and one is kind of a special. So let's take a look at that. First, we're going to take a look at the presentation. The presentation is not organizing this very well. We're going to do it together in the document that we have. But here is to approach the different types that we got. All right, let's start, please. We know this. We don't need to read it. We know that we're working with those words, myself, yourself, and it says they usually refer back to a person or thing. I say usually in this case because it's not always the case. In one of the meanings or two, it is like that, but not always. This is one meaning, the basic meaning. Let's read this, please, Matilde.
Okay. We often use reflexive pronouns when the subject and the object of a verb are the same. I cut myself when I was making dinner last night. I hope you enjoy yourselves at the party tonight. My phone isn't working properly. It turns itself off for no reason. We need to believe in ourselves more.
Thank you very much. Now, again, this is very simple. We use reflexive pronouns when that person, when that object is the subject and the object in the same sentence, right? I am doing the action, that is to cut, and I am receiving that action, right? That is being cut. The same here, you enjoy yourselves. the same here, and the same here, right? Need to believe in what? Ourselves. So we do the action, we receive the action, right? That's the main and the basic meaning of reflexive pronouns. But we have some variations. This is actually one of those variations because we don't receive the action here. This is just emphasis. And this and the next one are going to explain the same idea. Let's keep reading this, please.
Okay. We can add a reflexive pronoun for emphasis when it's unusual or different. He wants to pass his driving test so that he can drive himself to work. She broke her arm so she couldn't wash herself very easily.
Good. Thank you very much. Now, again, here the idea is not that you receive the action. The idea is that you do the action and that it's unusual. But you are not driving yourself in the sense that you are doing that to yourself, right? Because you cannot drive yourself. Is that you are doing that, and that's unusual, and it's worth mentioning that you are doing it, right? So you can say, I painted that work myself, right? I'm not receiving the action, I'm just putting some emphasis on the idea that I did it, right? So this is the second type. The first type, again, it can be tricky, all right? It's simple, but it can be tricky. I believe you're not going to have problems, but just in case, the first one, you do the action, you receive the action. The second one, you do the action, you don't receive the action, you are just saying that, wow, it's interesting that you did it because it's not common, right? The third one is the same, but here you also get the idea of doing it personally, that you were there, and it doesn't mean alone, right? Many people get to perhaps confuse this one with the idea of alone, but it's not alone. Here only means that you were there. Perhaps you were receiving help. You're not mentioning that. It's just that you were there doing that action or that you did that action. So let's keep reading this, please.
Okay. We can use reflexive pronouns to emphasize that someone does it personally, not anybody else. The door was definitely locked. I locked it myself. Are you redecorating your flat yourselves?
Good. Thank you. So again, here personally, not necessarily, and we're going to see the difference later on, alone. All right. It says no, no, not nobody else in the sense that you were there doing that and you did that action specifically. But again, it's not alone. And we're going to see the difference when we get to practice. This has the same idea, but this is the third usage, and it's with nouns, right? It has to be next to the noun to put emphasis on that noun only, not in the action, only in that noun, all right? Because we have to say that it is interesting and it's a special. And we want to say that it was really that person or it was really that object, right? So the emphasis is not on the action, it is on the noun that can be a person or an object, okay? And that makes it different. It has the same meaning of emphasis, but not to the entire action. So let's keep reading, please.
Okay. We can also use a reflexive pronoun together with the noun it refers to in order to emphasize it. We talked to the manager herself and she agreed to give us our money back. Parents themselves need to take more responsibility for their children's learning.
Thank you very much. Now, if we analyze, there's a big difference, right? If we say we talk to the manager herself and when we say we talk to the manager ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Ourselves, we are giving more emphasis to the idea that we did that action, but herself, this is the only thing that is receiving the action, right? So good. So far we have three that are important. We took a look at four, but two are the same. Okay, so once again, subject and object are the same, just one subject, and you have emphasis because it's interesting and common. Then you have emphasis on one noun only. Okay, those are the three. And the fourth one is the same that you mentioned at the beginning. So let's finish by reading this, please.
Okay. We can use by plus reflexive pronoun to mean alone. He usually goes on holiday by himself. Do you enjoy being by yourself?
Great, right? So this differently to the first three, here we don't have referring back to something. No, we don't have emphasis. We are just saying alone, right? It's just an extra meaning of this word, right? The reflexive pronoun. So with that said, we have more ideas to complement. No, this is just the difference between or with reciprocal pronouns, but we're going to take a look at that later on. Now, let's work on a chart, and you're going to try to, again, we're going to go to the document, please, Matilde. First, I'm going to build a chat, and then you're going to try again to write something using these four types of reflexive pronouns that we got. So let's first work on the chart. It is over here. So I have this, the subject, the verb, the object, and one complement. 1, 2, 3, and the four types that we got. Okay, so again, this is the subject, just to be clear, this is the object, and I'm sorry, we're going to set the verb, then the object, and here the complements. All right, so in the first part, we have that we do the action and we receive the action, right? You can say, I saw, right, myself in the mirror. All right, here we are doing the action and we are receiving the action, right? Very clear. Then something that is not the same, it would be the one that I told you. I painted, sorry, that work, all right, myself. Here, I'm just doing the action. I'm not receiving it. I'm just putting emphasis on the idea that I did it. And I believe that's uncommon because I don't usually paint, right, works of art. It was my first time, and I want to, right, say that I did it. Then the third one, we need nouns, right? We can use a name. Here we're going to have a variation, so let's have one more. So we can say Peter, as we can say, it can be the subject or the object. Peter himself, right, built that, right, that's it. And here we can say okay, I was with David Gilmore, all right, himself in Europe, right? That's my dream. And then here, the last one is alone, right? Very simple one. Again, I traveled, right? I myself last week, right? Again, this is something, I know that it's clear, but it's just to have everything organized. Here we have one and that. All right, so these are the four types then. I'm repeating number 2. This is the first one. We receive the action. The second one, emphasis on the idea that we did it. The third one, these two, it can be subject or object. Emphasis only on the noun, not on the action. And then just saying that you did something alone, right? So those four types. I don't know if you have questions before going to the practice, Matilde. Let me know, please.
No, I don't think so. I think it's clear.
Okay. So you have that chart there. Okay, use that chart, please, to work on this one. Let's have, again, we're going to work on a paragraph. Again, the idea is that little by little, we feel more comfortable with commas, with transitional words and everything, right? So again, the only instruction is going to be, this time only 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, it can be only one paragraph, all right? But it has to be complete with a minimum of 6 complete ideas, more or less, using all the punctuation rules that we know, all the transitional words that we are using. And again, try to use at least a couple of fun words that you know, and a couple of transitional words so that we can connect everything very well. But that's it. That's the only instruction. Using any idea that you want, try to use these for examples in that paragraph. It can be something perhaps not that, um, I don't know, natural because you're going to force yourself to use these four, all right, structures, but try to make it as logical as possible. Just that one, Matilde. I don't know if you have questions before
Okay.
starting.
No, I think I'll give it a try and see.
Okay, good. Let's do it. Please, again, we're getting to unit three, if I'm not wrong with this one. So you can write that one in unit three here down below.
Number, wait, okay, unit 3.
Yes, that's correct. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Good. So 5 minutes to have that one paragraph. Again, very structured. And again, only if you have the time, try to use both letter for the reflexive pronouns that you're using. And you're going to tell me what reflexive pronoun it is.
Okay. Does it has to be like an essay or just any
No,
paragraph about
yes,
something?
any paragraph with any structure that you want about anything you want.
Okay. Yeah.
Good. So let's do it. I'm going to start with the timer, and in 5 minutes, we start checking.
Okay.
We check in 1 more minute, please.
Okay.
All right, let's take a look at what you got, and we go to the next part. Sorry, my camera. All right, so let's read, please, what you got. Matilde, I'm here with you.
Okay. Being an adult is so complicated. The first time I had to pay taxes, I couldn't do it myself. I had to ask for help. I was so frustrated, paying the bills and taking care of my own expenses. My sister said to me that I shouldn't worry because she dealt herself with the same issue many years ago. You will get used to it, she said. I don't feel like myself anymore. It's so frustrating.
Great, thank you very much. Now let's take a look. All right, I'm going to start finding and marking the reflexive pronouns that we got, and we're going to see if we have well, all of them. If not, we're going to try to add one more. All right, and again, in the meantime, I'm also going to be checking some details. So good, being an adult is so complicated. The first time, right, I had to, and again, this is extra, this is not incorrect. If you want to be very formal in writing, you're always going to write the connector that. Okay, anytime you can avoid it, you can do it, but in writing, it's advisable to have it there. All right, but if you don't have it, it is not incorrect. It's just more formal. So the first time that I had to pay taxes, I couldn't do it myself, right? Now, that's one complete idea. That's a complex sentence. How do we know? Because you have a time reference, the first time, or it's like saying when I had. Okay, so when you have a time reference, that's like a connector about time. So the first time you had to do that time, you couldn't do it yourself. So that's a complete idea, all right? And that's one sentence. So it means that what you have here is another sentence, but it's not connected. So you have two options, three options actually, or four, right? One of them is just using and it's going to be correct, right? So I couldn't do it myself, and comma, and I had to ask for help. That's one solution. The second solution, again, remember, they are connected, but they are not part of the same idea. So you have to use a semicolon, right? The third one, you can use a period. That's it. The fourth one is that you don't have to use the comma, you don't use I, and perhaps you only use and. Okay, I couldn't do it myself and had to ask for help. But that last one can get to confusion because they are different tenses. Actually, they are past, but this is a modal and this is a verb, right? So the fourth option is not as advisable as the other three. All right, so let's have, I don't know which one you would like to use or which one you believe is better. The comma with the fanboy, the semicolon, or the period. Which one you feel is better in this case, Matthew?
With the fun boy, maybe.
Okay, good. So that's the alternative. All right, and again, those are possibilities. You are always the one who has to decide this because as this is your work, you are the only one, right, who knows what you want to express. So you decide which one feels more connected, which one gives the idea that you want to give. All right, so that's always going to be your decision. So I was so frustrated, right? Then this can be extra, but it's better if you connect directly why you were frustrated. Because if you said the comma, right, paying the bills and taking care of my own expenses, it's over there, but I believe that it can be directly connected to the idea of being frustrated. Okay, so you can connect that with any connector that you want that shows reason. Okay, I was so frustrated because, when paying, or due to, right, the fact that I had to pay bills, or anything that can connect the idea as reason. All right, just that one. That's a recommendation over there. Then my sister said to me, I shouldn't be worried because, right, in this case, remember, because we're not going to
Oh,
use a comma.
yeah.
So we don't need it over there because she dealt, here we need a preposition. All right, it is going to be, it can be with, that's an alternative. You can deal of something, but in this case, it's going to be to deal with. Okay, but here I want to say herself connecting to she,
Yeah.
or
I mean,
because
by herself, but no, it's not by.
here you want to say yes, because if it's without with, it is going to be incorrect because it has to be directly after the. Now you're using with here, but you're mentioning something else. But this herself then is not correctly placed over there. You have to
Mm,
tell me here, what is that herself doing? What is the meaning? Remember the four options, right? Is
yeah.
it doing the action and receiving the action? Is it putting emphasis on the idea that she did something? Is it giving emphasis to one noun? In this case, we don't have a noun, so I believe it's not that one, unless you change she to a name. So it is going to be a noun, right? And the fourth option is by herself, but I don't know if this is the case. So you tell me, which one do you believe can work here?
I think it's, yeah, maybe the second, because it was not easy and she achieved it. I mean,
Good.
she, yeah.
Great. So in that case, remember, the second one is describing an action that is very interesting and common. So you have to set and place this word at the end of the action. All right. So it can be, for example, she dealt with the same issue herself because she
I,
did that herself. All right. That's one possibility, but let's see. Let's see if it is going to work here. Right. But we have with there. All right. They perhaps are going to recommend to change to by herself, but if you want to put emphasis, that's your decision. All right. So good. Herself many years ago. Now you have this, right? You have this. This is a direct speech, or you can
oh,
call it
yeah.
citation, right?
Capital
So we
letter,
have
yeah.
options. Good. And also one thing. What else do you
Yeah.
need? You have to introduce this. How can you introduce? Because like that, it's not bad, but that can be better for academic writing. How can you improve that? You need capital letter, that's correct, but you can also do something. And also, if you realize you're doing something interesting, that is inversion over here, but this is something different because the idea here finishes here, right? And this is something else related to that, but it's a new idea because you have subject, verb, that's complete idea. And then you have the complement that is before, and it's valid. So what do you say? What can you do in this case?
Mm,
Remember that it's a new complete idea that you have. Just if you say she said, that's a complete idea.
yeah. Um, I don't know. Like, I don't think a period. It's, or maybe a period.
You have many options, right? But in this case, this is a long idea. You have my sister, right, said to me that I shouldn't worry because she, I'm sorry, I cannot read it. Okay, she dealt with the same issue herself many years ago. That's the end of the idea, right? What you say afterwards is something related to that, but it's not part of the same sentence. It feels when we speak that it's part of the same sentence, but it is not, right? In speaking it feels, but in writing it's something extra that you're adding. So again, the options are comma and fanboy, but you have to decide if the fanboy is going to be enough there. Or you also use a fanboy when you really have a meaning over there. You have at and sorry if you add information, right? But if you contrast information, so if you have a consequence. If you don't have any of those and you're just saying something else, then you can just use a semicolon without any other word, right? Because a semicolon is not telling you addition, is not telling you contrast, it's just telling you, okay, this is the next idea and it has a connection with the previous idea, but it's not saying exactly what the connection is. All right, so you use semicolon anytime you don't want to say what is exactly the connection between the first and the second idea that you have. Okay, so my recommendation would be here using that one, a semicolon. As you can see, that's going to be fixed. Now, again, here it should be just like that without capital letter, but as you're doing the opposite, you can do it in that way. You will get to it. And remember the rule, all the punctuation marks, they can be periods, semicolon, or anything, are inside the quotation marks, right? So the comma is going to be inside that one, and then she said. Okay, so this by itself, it's a new complete idea, but you're not saying that it's different to what you said before. It's connected, it's just complete, right? Then I don't feel like myself anymore. It's so annoying. Right, good. Now I forgot to mark all the ones. So we have one over there, and here we have one over here. So it means, or it seems that we are missing one. Which one are we missing here? And which ones do we have? What do you say? The first one. What is the first one doing? What is the purpose of the first reflexive pronoun?
The first one is that this I was not capable of doing. I think it's the third. No, I don't remember which one, but yeah, I was not able to do it.
Good. So you are putting emphasis. You can say that you're putting emphasis on the action that you couldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't do it yourself. It doesn't mean alone. It doesn't mean emphasis on the noun. It's just the action that you didn't do. Correct. That's one. So let's check. All right. Let's go to the one that is going to be number 2. Okay. So we have number 2. I'm going to mark that just to have something. Okay. Good. Well, it wasn't the one I wanted. Let me get this, please. It is here. So we have that one, right? Number 2. Now, what else? We have one more that is over here, and it says this one, right? The one you explained to me. Can you do it again? Why are we using herself here?
Because it's an extraordinary thing that she achieved.
Good. So in other words, in the explanation, we have two different ones, right? That it's the first one that you have here and this one. But in our case, in this chart, it is still going to be part of number 2. So it is correct, but it's still number 2, right? Why? Because that action was not expected, was different, extraordinary, something that it was worth mentioning, right? So good. We have 2 with number 2. All right, 2 with that. Now, let's keep going. What about the third one? We have one more, I believe, that is here.
Yeah. In that case, it's the third. I mean, like,
right.
It's the emphasis of the subject. I mean, myself.
Okay. All right, so because it says, I don't feel like myself, it can also be that you're describing yourself, right? You're not saying something extraordinary. Remember the description, right, that you said in your second example. It's not an action, but perhaps instead of the third one, because remember here, the number, well, actually the third one is these 2 examples, but for number 3, you need a noun, right? And you don't have a noun. It has to be next to a noun. So I would say that it's closer to this. It's not receiving an action, but it's describing an action that you are saying and you are receiving, right? I don't feel like myself. I feel that, and how you don't feel is yourself, right? So I would say it's number one in a very special case and interesting, and it's correct because again, in this case, is description that you that you say and that you receive. Okay, so we have these two. It means that we are lacking two. This is just going to be speaking, right? The third one is easy, or sorry, the last one, right? By myself. You already gave me an example by using that. Let's try with this one. You have two possibilities. It can be the subject or it can be the object, but it has to be always next to a noun. That's the condition. So what do you say? Just by speaking, what can you say with
Um, my mm, I mean, but it's not necessary, but my accountant herself fixed all my mistakes
Yes,
in
according right to your
tests.
experience, you feel that it's not necessary, but in terms of grammar and the usage of that one, it is correct, right? And for some
Okay.
people in a certain situation, it can be necessary, right? So it's good, great. Again, anytime you want to put emphasis only right on one person or one object, this is the best option. Right? Why? Because the other usage, number two, it is going to put the emphasis on the entire action that you are doing or that someone else is doing. Okay, and that's the big difference. But
Mm.
that's it. I believe that we have the core of them. I don't know if you have questions about this, Matilde, before finishing this lesson, reflexive pronouns.
No, it's very clear.
All right, good. So it means we can go to the next one and we can keep working. And this is the past continuous. Okay, no, actually, this is not something we have to practice, but let's just review then before going to. And give me 1 second. I'm sharing the. Okay, good. Now, past continuous. Very shortly before we can have at least 5 or 10 minutes to go to our main practice for speaking one more time. So, when do we use past continuous, Matilde? What do you know about it?
Well, um, when I use past continuous, I'm trying to explain something that I was doing. Um, for example, I was playing with my niece before this class. Yeah, I'm
Good,
referring
that's correct.
to an action that happened in the past, and yeah, and it did finish, but it was referring that out something I was doing.
Good. Now, let's try to see the differences between the simple past and the past continuous, right? When do we say I played with my niece? And when do we say I was playing with my niece? So, what is the difference between the simple and the continuous form of the past? And when is it better to use one or the other?
Okay. Mm, I mean, simple past usually, well, something it's done, but past continuous somehow it is done as well. Mm,
You can try finding the usage in a story. For example, when you're telling a story in the past, try to analyze how do you use the past continuous and how do you use the simple past. And you're going to see that they have different purposes when talking about past. And I give you an example, right? You can say, last week I was walking on the street when I found a wallet, right? I was impressed because it was full of money, right? Many people were passing by, but no one was noticing the wallet. I was the only one that did it. So just until that part. So
Mm.
when did I use the simple past and when did I use the past continuous? Or what do you think is my criteria over there?
Um, when you are, what's the word? Telling, um, I forgot the word. Narrating? No, it's not. But you are explaining an action and an active action, and then it's a fact more than a fact. But
We're getting closer. That's good. That's a good way to see it. I will use different words perhaps over there. It's good narrating. And if you analyze, yes, here narration is important because the past continuous, the main usage is to give context to your narration, to your story, right? I was doing this, it was raining, I was dancing with my friends. And the simple past is going to give you specific, punctual, definite actions that happened along the past continuous action, right? So the past continuous actually is pretty important because it gives you, right, like the context in which everything else is going to happen, right? So you were walking right down the street when you found a wallet, when you saw a friend. So in between, right, the past continuous action, you can have many simple past actions, right? So that's the main thing. The past continuous can contain a lot of definite actions. It works as context. It works as a parameter, right, inside which the definite actions can happen. And it can happen as the past continuous is happening or afterwards, but you need to use words to make that clear. All right, so let's have that in mind then. Past continuous, your context, your parameter, right? Your group. And inside that group, you have a lot of possibilities for the simple past. That's the main thing that we have to know about the past continuous. Let's read this, please, Emma.
okay. For something which happened before and after another action, the children were doing their homework when I got home. Compare the children did their homework when after I got home.
Good. And this is also interesting, right? So how can you explain the difference between those two? What do you say? The children were doing their homework when I got home, and the children did their homework when I got home.
Because, I mean, in the second example, the children already finish their
Or
homework.
actually, in this case, it is going to be the opposite, right? Because it is going to be that they did that only when you got home, right? So
Oh,
actually,
yeah,
first, it
right.
is going to be after,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right. Yeah.
Whereas in the first case, they were already working on their
Yeah.
homework, right? You got home and they continue, right? So it was part of a big context. You got home and you getting home is just one thing that happened, right? Inside that big thing. But the other one is like a sequence. This is also a big difference. One gives the context and the other one serves if you want to use sequence of actions, right? First this, then that, and so on and so forth, right? That's why it's a good idea to use transitional words as first, second, finally, with simple past, right? It's not a good idea perhaps with past continuous unless you want to give context inside that sequence of actions. right? So that's also important and worth noticing. Good. We have, of course, some connectors. We can use while, we can use when, right? While is better when you have two actions happening at the same time. We know that. And when, while are the two possibilities, and you can always play with past continuous, simple past, past continuous, or past continuous, right? So that's just grammar, and these are formulas just in case you need to use them. You have them over there. And again, sometimes it is going to be for interrupting actions, not always, but I want to get to the main part. This is the one. These are other usages for the past continuous that I believe are worth knowing. This is the first that I told you. So let's read this, please.
Okay. This use of the past continuous is very common at the beginning of a story. The other day, I was waiting for a bus when last week I was driving to work.
Good. So again, it's common at the beginning of a story, but not only the beginning, in every part, right, in which you want to set a context or the parameter I told you, right? The second one is the one we already mentioned. That's the difference, right? The difference between it was 8 o'clock, I was writing a letter, and at 8 o'clock, I wrote some letters, right? There's a big difference. In one of them, the action started before that time, and in the other one, the action started after that time or at that time, right? So that's another interesting difference. Now, this is one that let's read, please. I think that we have to know.
Okay. For something that happened again and again, I was practicing every day, 3 times a day. They were meeting secretly after school. They were always quarreling, fighting, arguing.
Great, right? So the same, right? We know that past continuous is not just for something we are doing or we were doing at that specific time. It's for repetitive actions, right, that happened again and again. And again, usually it's something temporary that can be for weeks, months, right? Perhaps a year. But more than that, it's not going to be a good idea because it's already a fact. And more than a fact is a routine. And it is better to use perhaps or used to or at the simple past, right? So you always have some parameters to decide which one is better. We have to remember that we cannot use continuous forms with non-action verbs, right? They work with action verbs, but not with non-action verbs or stative verbs, right? And we just learned that one off in one of the previous lessons, and that's it. I wanted to show you that again because it's important to be sure that all the Pearson contents are clear. So let me know, please, if you have questions. That was fast, but I want to use these 5 minutes to practice something extra in case this is clear. Let me know, please.
Yeah, it's clear. Yeah.
All right, good. So now that we have that covered, again, we're also going to finish our content. So right, 1 or 2 days before the 8 days that we have. So we're going to use those 2 extra days to work specifically, all right, on TOEFL practice. That again is something extra. That's not part of what we do here because these courses are just focused on, well, covering this type of content just for English. But I believe that it's good that you start practicing as I told you. So let's go to once again the speaking part. Remember that yesterday I gave you two pieces of advice, right? Because they were great. In the first case, it was that the balance, right? The first part of your answer, the first benefit or reason was longer than the second one. The second one was a little bit rushed. And well, it felt like that, right? It was, even though it was good, it we felt that difference. In the second case, I believe it was pretty good, but we had some extra time that perhaps we didn't know how to use because I believe that you felt that you had some extra time, but you didn't start or you didn't want to start with something else because it was not that much time. I think it was like 10 seconds. So you were closing that one, right? And you finished before, which is also good. But you did this time it was, or that time it was the opposite, right? It was like very slowly. The last part was like closed with a well slower pace than the first part because you had the time, but also because we didn't add some extra content over there. So now we have to try to look for the midpoint between those two experiences. Okay, having a balance, but also having the chance of mentioning once again at least one example that perhaps you can repeat some words that you mentioned. All right, but when you say that experience as something that happened to you, it is going to add something extra, right? So let's have that in mind. We are going to have a new question that I'm going to read it for you. First, let me show you one more time the template. I know that you should have one, but just in case. And in that template, just for practicing, remember, I have here some words, but remember that you can add more words if you want. Right here, you can have to start with, to begin with, and here you can have more like afterwards. Also, well, we have also over there, right? A plus, you also have plus, right? The one that we read in that essay. So you can also use those words to make the connections and to try to vary as you give different responses because you have many tasks like this. So let's have the question. All right. I'm going to try to think of something now because I'm trying to find, I was looking for web pages, but they were not as good as the one that I used to use. But I don't know what happened. All right. It's not working anymore. So I'm going to use some of them because I remember, and it is going to be, um, okay, this one. This is always the one that we used at the beginning, but it's interesting, right? So, do you prefer to study and read at home or going to a library, right, and do it over there? That's it. Okay, tell me why and support your response with some examples if possible. Let's have please 30 seconds to organize our ideas and we can start now. All right, good. Now it's time. Now, once again, right? Do you prefer reading at home or do you prefer going to a library and do it over there, right? You can think of all the possible benefits, advantages, disadvantages, examples to support your idea. So please, now we have 45 seconds. This is going to be the last one practicing like that. Starting tomorrow, yes, or next week, we're going to start recording this so that you can also listen to your recordings, all right, and try to analyze what you were saying. So let's do it, please. We have 45 seconds and you may start now.
Okay, I would choose going to a library. First of all, because if you decide to go there, you will not have distractions. And if you decide staying home, you will have these distractions. You have tasks that you have to do home. You could start using some social media as well because you feel more comfortable doing at home. But if you're in a library, that should not happen. And the second idea that it's connected with the first, at a library, it's an environment that is designed for reading and studying. So you will have the silence and the concentration for completing whatever you're studying or reading.
Good. Thank you very much. Good. Again, I believe that you have two very good and strong reasons over there. That was great. All right. Again, perhaps in the last part, again, you felt that you couldn't finish because we had 47 seconds. And again, it can be because of the internet, but it's 47 seconds over there. And again, the only recommendation there would be, let's see the time that we have here. Remember that it can be, at least the ideal is to finish the first idea on second 25. Right? Again, this is not something that is going to be followed, and on the test, well, it's not going to happen. right? It's never going to be like this. But that can help just in case you want to give more emphasis to the second idea because it was good again. But I believe that also perhaps the first idea was very well developed, right? It was great. The second was also great and strong, but it didn't get to have the perhaps the supporting details and the calm right with which you were able to develop the first idea. All right, that will be again my only observation over there, to have the two descriptions with the same pace and with the same right set of ideas, and you have a lot of things to add over there. It will be great. The second one was just lacking the quality that the first one had. Okay, just that. It was great, but it didn't have the same quality as the first one. All right, so what do you say? How can we fix that one? What do you think that you can do to give the same quality to the second idea, Matthew? What do you say?
Um, yeah, well, I write it down. Then, and while I was speaking, I realized that the two ideas actually were similar. I mean, the explanation. So I was trying to figure out in my mind how to separate them, and yeah, I didn't want to make it sound the same thing at the end. So
Okay.
yeah, maybe I should point it out very different ideas to not mixing them. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and that's good. Again, the only one that you are going to have strategies right around the internet. You're going to, this is one, all right. I believe that the ones that are in charge of the TOEFL are the ones also that were working this with me. And this is just one strategy, right? You have a lot of them. This is not the template that is going to be the one on the TOEFL. But again, what I can tell you, because of these people, is one that is going to make you get a high score. All right, and that's what we want. So you can apply at the end if you feel comfortable. You can do some research, as I told you, and you can mix this strategy that I'm showing you here with other details that you see on the internet. That also works, right? But as long as you have something that you know and you can memorize, because again, the idea is that you are not like, I don't know, there without knowing what to do, right? The main idea is that you have a structure that is clear, that you memorized, and that whatever topic, whatever question you are given, you can answer that using this template, right? So that you don't have to think of the structure, you just have to think of the details. You have to you have to fill in the blanks practically, and right, submit that answer. All right. So that being the idea again, for example, here, what I did in this part, they always told me work with two examples, but I never had the time because of all the explanation that I used to give. So I found one, to me, it was one strategy that worked, that it was working with one example, including the two benefits that I mentioned. All right. But I did that in order to have just like an interesting way to finish or to close up my response. And again, sometimes at the time for giving the conclusion, not every time, but when I did have the time, I did it, and it also felt very good. All right. So again, I'm saying that because you have to find the way that works good for you. All right. I'm giving you your feedback, but you have to decide what is the way in which you can look for that balance. And again, the only good thing, and perhaps you have to take into account, and it has to work in any strategy, is that you need to have a balance between the two reasons that you give. All right, because it's kind of expected that you give at least two good reasons. You can give more, but the more you give, the better organized you have to be. And sometimes some of them are going to be supported in a very good way, and other ones are not, and they are going to feel like they are just, I don't know, right, occupying space because you didn't know what to say. So in order not to have that sensation, it's just to have two, but that the two of them have to be developed with the same quality. Just that one. So I know we are, well, we have 4 minutes, all right? It's 10, 19, but I want to do it one more time. All right, let's do it please one more time. Matilde, I'm going to give you once again 30 seconds try to, if you want, you can change the second reason, or if you want, you can give it some stronger, all right, details to make it as strong and with the quality as the first one. All right, so let's do it, please. Let's try to do it in 30 seconds and then we answer once again.
Okay.
All right. So, once again, right, do you prefer reading at home or do you prefer going to a library and do it there, right? Take into account once again advantages, disadvantages, benefits, and all the possible variables that can affect your decision, all right? And support it with detail. So let's do it, please. You have 45 seconds and you may begin now.
Okay. I would choose going to a library for studying. First of all, because if we are staying home, we have way more distractions. We have the TV, the social media, and this is not good for studying or reading. And the second idea, I think that if you are going to a library, you will have the silence and the environment for completing your studying. More people are there with you, studying with you, and that's a reinforcing thing to continue doing so. And in my experience, it's way more easier to. I forgot to check,
Good.
but yeah, it's way more easier. Yeah.
Good. Until that part, right? Just the last
Yeah.
part, because I think that you got to have very interesting details for both ideas. I believe that that answer is very strong. All right. Perhaps just by the decision that you took at the end to continue working on something that perhaps you were not going to have the time right to finish, that was the
Yeah.
only mistake, right? The only
Yeah.
mistake. But you know that one, right? Now you know that if you feel that you are 40, remember 40 seconds, 41, then stop over there, right? It doesn't matter that you didn't finish what you wanted to say. It is better to stop there than remember the recording right stops that you
Mm.
are cut in and that's it, right? So, but it's good. I believe that you can also get to use the last idea that you were developing because it's great that you said in my experience, and perhaps you could just you could have finished in saying in my experience it's definitely better to study in a library, period, right? And that's it,
Mm.
because we didn't have the time, and that would be enough. But again, I believe that you, if you use some extra time, you can develop more in the way you want it. But again, it's great. Let's just try to organize that last idea, and it can happen with anything you want to detail. All right. So, but that's it. That will be my last feedback. I don't know again if you have questions or comments before finishing. Perhaps to finish or right now, this can be the hardest task for speaking. All right. The other ones are more complex, but they are not hard because you have the information there. I would say that it's hard for people that don't have good listening skills or reading skills. But I believe that you do have those skills. So it's going to be just listening, taking notes, reading, taking notes, and then you report what you listened to and what you read, comparing or contrasting, and that's it. All right, then that can be very easy in comparison to this, that you don't have any element, and sometimes you're going to have topics again that are not easy to understand. So you have to find a way to say your response even without knowing what exactly you are meaning by one of those options, because sometimes you have to be kind of an expert to know some of those. But again, that's the difficulty here, that you
Mm.
can find very simple ones, but difficult ones that you have to manage to answer, even though perhaps you're not going to be sure one of those or what of those options are about sometimes. All right. But that's it. Again, do you have questions or comments before finishing? Let me know, please.
No, I don't think so. I think it was clear. Just a question, but about the Pearson assignments. I should finish them by.
It should be, if I'm not wrong, this is the fourth, and yes, this is the fourth day. So today we have two surveys. This is yours, right? Give me a second. Yes, this is yours. So this is the fourth day. We have 4 more days, all right, but weekdays. So you have tomorrow. Well, you have until next week, Thursday next week, because you have one extra day. So I
Okay.
set the April 13th. Okay, so you
Okay.
have until Thursday next week to finish everything, the assignments plus the quizzes and the final exam. Remember, as you can see here, this is something they give me. We have
Yeah.
classes tomorrow, but not on Friday, right? And we continue next week. Good.
Okay.
So with that said, please let me share. Remember, we have two. This is the daily survey, and once again, the survey for the midterm. That is the satisfaction survey.
Okay.
All right, I think that's done, and this is the other one. All right, so then I'll see you tomorrow. We'll keep working. Again, the idea is trying to finish the lessons that we have for Pearson. And if we get to finish that before, we have also extra time to practice in well, these TOEFL tasks. All right?
Okay. Perfect.
Good.
Okay.
So see you
Thank you.
tomorrow. Good night.
See you
Bye-bye.
tomorrow. Bye bye.